Windows, so it replaces. I was just making sure about that. Yeah. Righto, I'll dive through again. So you're currently seeing the dashboard, as we say, the home page. As I say, it's as I just mentioned earlier, a proper enterprise cloud product. So fully designed ground up to be in the web, broadband connection on the device of your choice, basically. So on our home page, we have the user can choose to have a variety of widgets displaying live information. So if you had something to do with attendance, you could see who there were 14 roles to be done, click through it and see who those teachers were that hadn't done their roles. Which of the students have got birthdays today, and teachers love to have that on their dashboard, so they can ambush the students when they wander in because they already know it's their birthday because this is popped up for the list, and so on. Just some default information about how many enrolled students, pre-enrollments, and who's left this year. And all click through, as you see, you mouse over, and it takes you through to the information if you needed to get a bit more detail. The notices, which I was starting to talk about, a couple of notices listed up here, and the nice thing is you can put a date for it to appear and then another date for it to disappear, and you can do that way ahead of time. And they can be archived to be brought back. So a nice sort of well-rounded management of all of that. Down the bottom, if we would like to give you any announcements about updates in Edge or notices about, hey, it would be good to have a look at this, some reminders about any sort of the functionality in Edge, we put them into that area there. And when the user first logs in, if they've not seen the notice, it'll be a pop-up, which hopefully they'll read, and then they can click and it'll disappear down there. And when it's no longer valid, it will disappear. So really trying to bring to people's attention things they need to know from a school's perspective and also from our perspective to the thousands of people using the system. So the notices, there's a couple of them up there. So the top one, just reminding all the bus students they need to hop over to the bus centre, the student centre, sorry, to get their cards for the year. The other one is more general, aimed at other people. So in here, we can see the notices appeared up here for the parents to see. And that's the where we're heading, of course, is for all this functionality to be with the user 24/7 pretty much, because the notices will be going to the mobile app. The moment the mobile app is doing student details and student attendance, but there's a very fast-tracked pipeline with announcements and notifications, looking up assessments, student work, that sort of thing, all happening, and paying bills online, all happening as early as possible this half of the year. So quick look at the parent portal there, multiple children these parents have. We'll come back to that in a second so you can see, because the interaction between home and school is extremely important to us. We're relevant, live and dynamic, and other times the school, they can take their time with reports and things and then post them to the portal and ultimately to the app, so they can, the parents will get a notification to see that. So our dashboard. Moving on from there, we've deliberately grouped up the functionality in the way schools like to use it and only present to the user what they need to see. So I've got everything turned on. So as I mouse over these menus, absolutely everything turns up, which in all reality is a little bit rare in schools. We have, a sprinkling of people that might have access to everything, depending on how the school is run. So we can see the enrolments is all to do with the people. The first column is the students, then the staff, then the caregivers. In the Kiwi world, that is all brought together for a return back to the ministry. So this data is basically amalgamated. The school does a quick check going down the list here, and then a file is fired off to the ministry 2 to 4 times a year, which works very well. And because the data has been checked in the early hours of the morning and presented back to the user if required, that sort of report back to the ministry is very, very slick. So the student information I mentioned, that was one of the first items here. What we try and do is bring together where relevant information from all of these menus. It's no use just seeing individual slices sometimes. You want to enter data, that's all very well. But if you want to get an across-the-board look, in this case of Caroline Adams, a made-up student, we're seeing what we call the core information up here. So what year level, what room they belong to some of the time, the type of student, through to their age, date of birth, ethnicity, and other information such as their email. And then below that, the information is cut into the, again, sometimes paralleling what you see up here, but brought together in an overall view. So the summary has their attendance, behavioural information, any notes that are gathered on the student, and that's split into attendance notes, assessment notes, enrolment notes, and sensitive notes, which can be limited in who can see those notes, defaulting to the person who entered it. But they can add other people to that. So that's proved very popular because you can put attachments on there. And so if there was, you know, anything, if an attendance note was brought to the school, that can be saved as part of the record against the student if it was needed for future reference. Similarly with assessment, enrolment, and sensitive notes, if there was anything relevant to that, all can be stored in there because we are talking about a SQL database here. So very capable, very scalable, very fast. And so we don't have to worry too much about storage, although I'm sure the developers would frown me saying that. But it is very capable. We've got tens of thousands of people in there, and it's growing all the time. And so that's why we picked the SQL database, because of its enterprise capabilities. Further down, medical conditions. And so at a glance, this is where often the principals of the schools are really loving this page in New Zealand, as are the teachers. Because at a glance, they can see right across a good summary about individual students. They can move between them. They can search for another particular student very easily up there and down here. We've got two areas for different reasons. Further down the page, we're getting the caregiver information, and that can be opened as required. If they need to email them, click email package opens up, and they can straight away email that particular caregiver. They can see a range of flags. So is this person the guardian? Are they just, which is the wrong word, but an emergency contact? Is it where the student's living? That sort of core information right at their fingertips. In the New Zealand space, we have a range of achievement. This is secondary, so we're talking students, well in this case a student of about 16, 17. Our NCA system, they haven't started their achievement for this year, so there's nothing in that band, but historically they can see how well they've done. All of this is available in the parent and student portal. So back over in this area here, the parent can look up, they can go to Caroline, and they're seeing exactly the same information in here, cut again in the different areas, and so they can get a credit summary and NCA progress, school payments, which we'll cover off when we come back to that. So again, this is an area that while it's Kiwi specific, looking at here, it's all part of the process we have for, for different people wanting to use the system, and that's where, the conversations go on, and the pages are tailored to suit individual needs, be it another school type in our world, a business in our world, and as for your South African needs, these could be tailored to suit what you would need over there. Proving a popular page, partly because it is read-only. So for the teachers, they're seeing all of this information, and no offence to teachers, but they can't edit it. In certain cases, they're inputting data in the assessment area, and that would appear here, but depending on your rights in the package, a teacher probably would only see summary, they wouldn't see edit student. In this context, not the caregivers, but they would see the medical relating to their own students and be able to add notes and that sort of thing, which is all quite relevant. Next one across, just diving quickly, if you wanted to edit information on the student, so we were on the summary tab, I've now come over to the edit student tab, and as you would expect on a web page, you roll down the page, nice easy entry using the mouse roller, and it's all very intuitive. We're not inventing something specific to this package. If a user is very used to using a browser, and pretty much everybody is, there is nothing proprietary going on. So the back button does back, that sort of thing. The mouse rolls up and down as you expect. Tabs and buttons all work as you would expect. And as you saw me back on this tab, sorry, what did I do that for? You can open and close, all very webby, as you would expect, and where relevant. When you mouse over something, you get choices. I can right click and I can open it in another tab. So really trying to make the experience nothing new and unique to a specific package. People are used to browsing the web, so let's just give them all the functionality that they're used to just that we've got features and functions in here that are specific to managing students and what they need to do in that world. We come back over there. Oh, so the other tab, we've got timetable. So the student's very part-time at the moment. They're just doing biology 5 times across the 5 days. But as you know, our time of year, the students are building up their timetables ready to start in a couple of weeks, and these would fill up with where they're going to be. And we have a very comprehensive timetable creation package. In a nutshell, the students can go online and they can choose the courses they'd like to do. The staff then add what they're able to teach, and the algorithms within the software then blend those two together so there's no clashes or minimal clashes, which can then be tweaked to do that. So it's a very powerful package. It works with schools with thousands of students, right down to some of our smaller ones that just have more individual needs, so they can tailor that very well. And it's very automatic. Once the staff are happy with the timetable and what's happening where, they go activate for a date range, and that then drives the attendance functionality. And it also drives, where relevant, what courses and the achievement that's occurring on the student at specific times. So the counter and the timetable, especially in our senior schools here in New Zealand, is very much driven by the timetable. So the functionality we've got in the Create Edit timetable area is very capable and suits, as I say, schools that may only have 100 odd students through to others, big ones, the small villages with a couple of thousand, and that works well. And the ability, again, for the parent to be online, and you can see they've got the choice to see where their child is on the timetable. They'd like to look up what they happen to be at a particular time, they can do that, and related to that, see the attendance on the student as well. We'll come back to that in a second. Any questions on those bits? Very good. So really, that's all.
We've got one question from David.
Yes, David.
So you just go back a few steps. Oh, get an echo here. You showed us the Ministry of Education.
Nice piece of music.
I'm on mute.
Something's not. It's going between 2 microphones, I think.
Yeah. Am I able to mute my mic?
It's in the key of G minor.
Sophia,
Yeah.
Sophia, if you're able to just mute your speakers for a second, I think you're sitting next to David, and it's going from your speakers into his mic. If you're able to turn your speakers down for the moment, when you're
Okay. Is you be able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. You had a feedback that went back to the Ministry of Education.
Yep. Yes, that's
MOE there.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be able to rewrite that for our particular needs?
Well, in essence, we have a lovely automatic functionality here, but in essence, and Matt may chime in here, but it's in essence creating a XML file with the information the ministry would like, which is all around stats and counting students. And in days gone by, a file was created and sent off to the ministry. These days, on the dashboard, we have more automatic functionality. But yes, if you have a range of values that you would like to capture on your students, that is then dropped into a file, and there is simply a button that either fires it off to the ministry. Would that be correct, Matt? Or there are other ways to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I will chime in here. So Edge is currently, and it's probably worth just having a little bit of a wider discussion around this. Edge is definitely tailored to the New Zealand market. However, our development approach is an agile one, which means it's ongoing, and we're continually improving and enhancing the feature set in it. What we would definitely look at doing is, in terms of moving into the South African market, and yourselves included, would be to bring in yourselves into our customer group. So as part of the support, we actually have within New Zealand a group of around, I think it's 20 odd schools and a user consulting group that we talk with on a regular basis in terms of developing the ongoing needs of our product. So we would replicate that in South Africa as well, which would mean that in terms of the product development direction, it would probably fragment for the two different markets with a centralized core. All of that is to say that, yes, in terms of integrating with either third parties or other institutions, that could occur. Relatively simple. We would obviously sit down with you and look at what the needs are and then build to those needs. But certainly at the core of Edge is an API platform, which would facilitate some of that data transfer, which is done. The reason that we do it this way for the New Zealand market is because not all of the software within the New Zealand market has the same technology that we've got. So we need to use an older way of transferring through data, which is what that MOE returns is. So we would certainly be looking at the more modern way of using an API and integrating across. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit more fully.
Yeah. If we've got specific fields that we need for, we have return that we've got to do. There's a 10-day return, and there's a quarterly return that we have to do, and that has specific fields that are required. But we also have a number of custom fields that we've done ourselves for different reasons. For part of the admissions process requires a lot of fields that are specific to our schools that aren't even used by other schools in our neighborhood here. Are we able to create our own fields that relate to parents, that relate to students, that relate to staff members? Are we able to create new fields?
Yeah, where we're going with actually what Matt was talking about with this ongoing discussion, we're about to add another tab over here we call custom categories, which is, you just described it, in a T. So it gives the abilities, while the schools can create their own assessments and all that sort of world, to have specific, more non-academic, shall we call it, fields in there. There's going to be a tab here called custom categories, and schools can put everything from, students' eye colour, if they'd like to do that, through to what winter sport they're doing, through to anything that's specific to their school, and they're free to fill it up how they like. And there is multiple values per student, exportable, sortable, all of that sort of thing. And those will be going through and being displayed on our portal here as well. And so, yeah, no, you described it exactly as it's coming out the pipe now.
Okay. Then we integrate in with a number of other systems. So a class group becomes a Google group. Do you have integration with Google Classroom?
Google Classroom is not too far away, so it's on our pipeline. And I would expect to see something in that space in the next 6 months this year. But in terms of other integrations with other packages, as I mentioned, we've got an API which comes out to the back of this. So, for example, we're using it for things like Active Directory integration, as well as into third-party software. So integration, the core architecture of the software is such that with relatively standard web technologies, it's able to integrate. If it's a more legacy type program, so an application that's not using web technologies such as JSON and for data transfer, we're able to use flat file exports, etc., to do those types of integrations as well.
Okay. Would we get access into the actual SQL database itself, or is that an encrypted database? Do we have direct access into the SQL server?
So one of the key principles that we have within Edge is a centralized database that all schools are hosted on the same database. Now,
okay. So we don't.
So what that's for is we actually have a centralized student record. So no matter where the student goes in New Zealand, if it's an Edge school, then that student information underneath the privacy laws, etc., gets transferred. Now, I think perhaps more with in South Africa, where we need to investigate whether or not that is the case. In saying that, if you're looking at data analytics, one of the key things that we have here is an integration with Microsoft Power BI. And so Microsoft Power BI is a fully fledged analytics platform, and you have access to a wide range of the raw data in that form that you can then use to analyze, etc. I'm not sure if that's exactly where you were going with that question, but it does mean that the data that you put in, you can either analyze in that platform or export into CSV, etc. to do something else with, but not direct access to the SQL, unfortunately.
Okay, so the database hosted on your site, is it a totally cloud-based system?
Yes.
On Microsoft's cloud, where it's actually hosted?
Yeah, so for the New Zealand market, given that Massey University is one of the largest IT shops in New Zealand, we have the New Zealand instance of Edge hosted with Massey University. But for South Africa, we would be looking at a Microsoft Azure hosted solution. Yeah. So that's similar to what we've replicated in the other countries that we're in at the moment.
Okay. Let's go on and see more, and then we can discuss further as we go.
Fantastic.
Thank you. So look, very quickly, and then we'll have a look at the finance part of it, which Sandy is the expert at. But for a very quick example of, I'm sure it is in every school across the world, taking attendance is a core piece of functionality. We try and make it as straightforward as possible, put the common codes up. They take less than 10 seconds to mark the class because they say they're not there, that person was late, let's put P in all the rest and save it, job done. And that can be done on the mobile app as well, which is where more and more teachers are going to, so they're not bound to a desktop or a tablet around the place. So they're doing that at the moment in the app. But the attendance functionality has got a very large range of analytics tools, so you can very quickly see who is and who isn't turning up, that sort of thing, reporting back. Some is, as you'd expect, specific to New Zealand, but again, as Matt's pointed out, that's all quite tailorable to individual needs. And as I touched on, the parent, as soon as save is clicked by the teacher on this, then the parent would be seeing that attendance or not. If there was a gap or a code that is not P for present, they would be seeing that live in there. And in New Zealand here, we have, as part of the texting system, we have the ability to what we call early notification. So anybody that has a question mark, so if I do submit that and then go into the area attendance and where are we, unexplained absences, well, it should just bring up that there's that one person with a question mark. We have early notification at the top here, and the school can choose to text the parent straight out of the package to say, hey, your child hasn't turned up, and there is the ability through that for the parent to respond back through their mobile with a note that will appear here very, very nicely. So again, that's something to be explored. I'm not sure if there's anything similar in South Africa in that space, but in New Zealand it's very well used and well liked, and is really good, as the title suggests, early notification. So at our schools, a lot of them start at 9 o'clock. So at 9:10, there'll be a bunch of parents getting a text going, oh, your child is away, and the ability for them to go, oops, I forgot to let you know, basically through their phone. Or I didn't know that, and I'm going to do something about it, is really quite a powerful tool. and as I say, well used in a range of school types around the place. And yeah, so that's Matt said we are always getting requests for feature additions and changes to what we've got there, and absences is no different to any others. We do get ongoing work happening in there, and I think we'll be pushing more and more of that to the app, because again, that's in the parents' pocket, and we'll be able to notify them not just of attendances but all sorts of other things.
Okay, so can you show us how a teacher would enter marks for a test? So
yep.
There's a maths test coming up.
Yep.
How does that process work? If you could show
So that's in New Zealand. If I just I'll mouse over, let me just go back a step. Again, under the curriculum area, it's probably our biggest menu in here, and a lot of these, again, sorry to harp on it, but a lot of these are specific to New Zealand schools, but what we call the MARC books, where any school from any country, from any school type, can customise. Here we go, you talked about maths. Well, here's maths test 1, term 1, and it's out of 10. So the teacher's banged in a mark. It's as simple as putting the mark in there. If they put in a number that's not allowed, that sort of thing happens, and so on and so forth. Down the bottom, as Matt pointed out, we're pretty much all across the board. You can export that if you needed to do something yourself with that data. I've got maths test 2, term 1 out of 10. And in this particular MARC book, I've also got reading. So instead of having numeric entry, I've got a drop down and we can add the values that are being configured into here. Now, these can be configured by year level, by class, in this case, I've got it on level 3 geography, but it can be configured how the school needs to do that. So we have groups of classes in New Zealand we call syndicates, which is probably a term used across the world. And so a group of 3 or 4 classes will come up with their headings that they're going to assess against across a term. And then the teacher, they've chosen to have, in this case, pond study and punctuality. So they're saying the punctuality of that student was excellent, and they're free. This is basically endless columns. So they can be adding these as they see fit using the MARC book configuration. This is the teacher entry type of it. But if we were back in the main part of the package, then what we call the assessment coordinator or the syndicate leader, deputy principal, whoever is doing this overall assessment, could be adding in their own headings, and then the teacher's free to add in the marks. And as you saw, in some cases you can't add things you're not supposed to, and in other cases it'll let you know that you're putting in a value that's not applicable in this case. With our own, yep.
And then the parents and students and student portals, they can see these straight off?
Yeah, the way it works, if I'm probably going to click save. So in the configuration, we can see here we've got the choice of display and reporting. And so if that's ticked, then in now, if I again duck back to the main part of the package, we have 3 sorts of reporting to parents. We'll show you attitude to learning in a second, which is what we call the paperless reporting, and is very popular in New Zealand schools because it's very dynamic. And weekly notes, you might call it. Middle school reporting is where schools possibly of younger through to maybe up to age 12 students do topic-based reporting. And then if you like, here is the traditional type of reporting where a school might issue once, twice, 3 times a year their own custom design of report, or we have a whole lot of templated reports that are basically, when I say it's paper, it's digital paper. I've got a sample up here, for example, where this is a subject-based report, and they're for a senior student, so they're doing level 2 biology. These are the names of the standards. This is what it's worth. And this is what the student got. So not yet assessed, achieved merit, etc. So again, quite tailorable to the market that plans to be using it. If there's no assessment being split up, so this is biology 2.1 in our system, and it's all about practical investigations. Those can be tailored, but we've got a national system, NCA, which is every secondary school and area school is using. But more of a school-based thing could be just its work presentation, its organisation, and there's the comment by the teacher. And this is just a PDF that the parent can access this from the portal. And if this was done in 2016, they just click back to 2016, there's the report for them to get, and it can't be lost and, get wet and it doesn't get home, that sort of thing, because it's when this is sent to the parent, they get a notification on their device, new report from the school, and they can go to the portal and there it is. So in terms of custom reports, schools are free to design how it looks. This is a booklet. It could be just one A4 page. It could be a B4 page if you wanted a small one. So it's very open as to what you can do there and how you would like to present it. This is just one of hundreds and hundreds of examples that can be done in the package. That's all.
Okay, so this is for a secondary level school, but going down to to
primary
preschool levels where they have they have a range of assessments where they want to be able to say achieve, not yet achieved. They want ticks going across the page or smiley faces or something.
So that's, yes, exactly. So what you had, what we had back in the Mark book here, go back to my Mark book. In the configuration, if you had chosen to show, let me just hide that, say the pond study, you would like the parents to know the results of that. So when that went to the report, it could say if a 3 turned up in the report, it would be a smiley face. If it was a 2, it would be not such smiley. That sort of configuration is what we call our services team are doing all the time. And so they're talking to the schools. And so for the teacher, they just want a quick way to bang the data in, and then the custom report then can be tailored to when it sees what values are in here, can be spat out onto the custom report to do that. So that's one choice. And I'm an ex-teacher. I taught all levels, from 5-year-olds through to 18-year-olds, and that was probably the approach I took in those, when I was teaching a few years ago. But we have what we will call more non-paper approaches, where the parent is seeing information not a few weeks down the track, but almost the data is being entered. That's the way we're moving more and more.
Yeah. Okay. And is there a place where the students can come in and look at their own results themselves?
Yep. So this is exactly what the students see as well. They just don't see the last tab, excuse me, that says school payments. They see exactly the same. And of course, the parent can see all of their children, but if Caroline logged in, she would only see Caroline, but she would see how she's doing in her assessments, where she's supposed to be on the timetable, how she's doing in attendance, and her own reports across the board. And so if we went to the reports area,
you just put in that mark. Can we see where that mark is?
Sorry, David, I haven't got that hooked up to this, but I'll show you what that means. So if I just jump slightly, what you saw there is what, if I put a mark in there, it would come out in a report like this or like this, all right? Yeah. That's the paper-based report, but it's a PDF. Yeah. And so that's visible on screen. So that's, if I put in pond study, it could be something like, put the dot there and then the next test, put the dot there. That's, that sort of thing. And the other style of reports we have are these ones here, where the teacher is entering a number against a range of values. In this case, it's managing self, participating, contributing, etc. And every fortnight or every week or every whatever they like to do, whatever the school chooses, in this case in biology, in the first week, it's Caroline, I think, yes, Caroline got a 3 in managing self, a 3 in participating and contributing, etc. And then the next time they're assessed in managing self, they've got a 4. So visually, the parent is seeing, gosh, there's an improvement, or in this case, no change, but it's better than going down. And this is definitely in the Kiwi, New Zealand world, this is proving more and more popular because they're getting it regularly. You can have a note, so if you mouse over it and there was a comment, it would appear down there where I'm trying to put my mouse. Yeah. And then I can see by each category how the person's doing. So level 2 biology, it was a 3, and it's a 4, etc. So this is proving more and more popular. But because schools are in very different places, they can have, as you saw, traditional paper reports. They may have this twice, 3 times a year, but many, many more schools are moving to this. And because the student can go online and see their results at any time, they just want to have the feedback from the teacher as to how they're going on a weekly or fortnightly or monthly basis. Does that cover that for you, David?
Yeah. That assessment that you had, that the math test that you put the mark in there for, does that show up here as well, or do I only get that result at the end of the reporting period?
This,
so you got math test here.
Yeah.
You give Caroline a mark for this, and would that mark book show up in her?
Yeah, that's the choice. This would show up in what we would call in this sort of report, and the school is free to publish that whenever they want, right?
Okay, but they can't see into the mark book directly on an ongoing basis. Okay,
no, that's not.
Just to add to that, David, the approach that schools generally take in New Zealand is to make sure that the information that goes to parents is curated. So one of the things that we've got there is even the attendance, which does come through pretty much straight away. There's a fair bit of nervousness in terms of our school's maturity in dealing directly with students, or perhaps I should say having unfettered access to information held within the system. So for that reason, the information is curated before it's released through parents, and that process is either through the publishing of the report or the publishing of the ATL. So not a direct no.
Okay.
However, David, what they could have done is the pond study could be connected to this, and so so they're seeing every so often. Pond study is probably a one-off type thing, but this is more aimed at how they're going across time. That's the approach in this area here. Whereas these types of reports tend to be, as you're nicely putting, taking marks that have gone into the system, then displaying those marks from 1, 2, 3, 4 tests across time. And that's what that's designed to do. So they don't see the raw stuff in the mark book. And as Matt's pointing out, the teachers will have somebody oversighting it. They're happy with the marks. They go publish, and that could be once a term. But these style of reports tend to have a bigger range of information, as you can see, across many subjects, more words, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But without trying to push a barrow too much, more and more schools in New Zealand are going for maybe once at the end of the year, there might be a wrap-up paper report, but through the year there is this. And we're working towards including work samples. And so they might take a picture of a particular piece of work, and that gets published. And as we get the app more mature, that's the approach we would take there. There was a photograph of the work, or the student is particularly happy with a piece of work, and they publish it, and then the parent can see it as part of the parent portal, because some of those things wouldn't lend themselves to be very visible on a phone, of course, too small. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So, Sandy, should we get you to flip through the finance now, just to so get a bit more of an idea of what's possible in here? Are you there, Sandy? Might have dropped off. I can't see you. Oh, no, there's Sandy. Yes. Very cool.
Good morning, everyone. So I think probably the most exciting aspect of the Edge link with Xero, which is something that we're having pushed into more and more schools, and now with our own add-on is increasingly popular, is the fact that you can deal with the multiple transactions that students need to be invoiced for or electronically charged for. The school's got a very flexible arrangement for that, but the subtotals go through to Xero and are batched electronically. And the setup is very simple, as Phil's showing you on screen. Under the finance section at the top of the menu bar, there's a settings option, and all we have to do is tick that we are enabling Xero interaction. You have to have a specific number of ledgers set up. So if we pop back quickly to finance, Phil, and then over to maintain ledger number. In that section, you must set up the bank ledger at the top of the screen, a clearing account ledger, and a ledger in case the parents are in credit. So they're standard accounting ledgers that would be in the balance sheet, and the school is responsible and has the flexibility to set up the billable items that they want to have. So there are some examples there. We have school donations in New Zealand. Some schools are trading, so there'd be stationery sales and uniform sales. And then there are often requests for contributions to curriculum areas or sports or cultural activities. And the number column on the left has a variety of different formats. Because Xero is able to cope with quite a wide range of formats, so can Edge, and the school's billable items ledger must match the code of the chart of accounts in Xero. The GST setting in New Zealand is 15%, and we've discussed with Ian already that the Edge would need to be configured for VAT, and I think it was 14%, but that's a relatively simple programming change, and the school is then responsible for their own billable items. So if we head back up to the very top, Phil, under finance, on the left-hand side, where it says create billable item, this is where the school can go in and set up their own billable items and choose whether the amount is a standard amount or whether it's variable. They can put in whatever description they want, and all they have to do is link it to a ledger number, which would be consistent between Edge and Xero. They can choose whether it's a voluntary payment, and that has relevance in New Zealand because our Inland Revenue Department has a tax credit for some collections. And then the type of group can be chosen as well. So you can quite quickly bill the eldest student in the family, or you can bill a grouping of students. So there are a lot of choices in terms of how those bills are set up. There's a big variety of options in there because this is demonstration data. So once those charges are applied to the students, what happens then is that under the finance section, on a daily basis, the person in the school who's responsible for payments would go into payments received. So there are two ways of doing this. So the person can use payments received, just let Phil find the section, and they can apply and show what the parent has paid for. Sorry, Phil, I'm taking you to another area.
Oh no, my fault.
That's all right. We'll try Caroline Adams because we know she's got some charges on her. So this is her screen. It shows at the top what's owing currently. This is just one child from a family. You can put in the amount that's been received and the method of payment, and the currently unpaid items show at the bottom of the screen, and the school can choose what they apply that money to. And that gives them the ability to pay off the most important items to the school. And for instance, in New Zealand, we would nearly always pay off trading items such as stationery or subject fees before we went anywhere near a camp or a donation item. Now that's one way where the school is controlling the entry. You can also have a situation where the parents go into the portal and the parent can choose what they're paying. So Phil's got the parent portal up. It shows all the members of the family at the top. And so you've got Carolyn, Carter, Jake, and John as the children in this one family. And then the parents can choose which items they want to pay for. They can do that and make an internet banking payment. And they can also, if the school sets themselves up, they can use a third-party situation such as Polly, PayPal. So these are options using a credit card where you would just need to know which situations would work for you in South Africa. So this is where the parents are there in control of what they're paying. And in New Zealand, for example, with Polly, the school receives the payment, I think it's once a week, from that organisation, and it's a much quicker option for them than having someone at the staff go in individually and apply every payment. Now, once those transactions have been recorded, what the school does to get the information across to Xero is simply to go back to the finance area and go into the batch processing. And what we've got is a situation where each batch is numbered. We recommend that schools should do a batch of automatic payments per day. They should do a batch of cash and cheques banking, which is becoming a lot less common now here. And you can see the various payment methods down there underneath the total. You can view any batch. So at the moment, we've got batch 16 on screen with a total of $146.70 showing as bank transactions. And you've got some other transactions as well. On the right-hand side, you can print off the student transactions. That's probably one of the most useful. That would show you every student and everything they've paid for. But the most important function was probably to go to print batch ledger summary before we export the batch to Xero. So if you want a paper copy and you clicked on that option, you would see the ledgers that are involved in the banking or in the batch. Just let that pop up. So this is showing you the total of the batch, and down the middle where you've got ledger, you can see the chart of accounts ledger, and then you've got the subtotals. So it doesn't matter how many hundreds of students' transactions are in there, you've got a summarised subtotal position coming through to Xero. And then all the school has to do, if they're happy with what they've done, is choose to click the button. If we head back one step, Phil, sorry. They choose the bottom button on the right, which is Export Batch to Xero. And then when they open Xero and the transactions have been received through the bank, those transactions are ready to match off in Xero. So it's been an extremely efficient process and a reasonable amount of time and development, but we've had a lot of input from the users in the schools. Our own company supports nearly 300 schools, and they're moving very quickly to Xero from previous packages, and this is one of the main reasons that this is just so efficient to be used. In terms of reporting to parents, they can look through the portal at any time and see what's owing and deal with payments, but we've also got what we call statements or requests for payment. So there are a couple of options there. We've got a statement example on screen. The lovely animal on the right would be replaced with the school logo, but a very easily read summary for the parents. We've got an opening balance because we're in a new financial year here in New Zealand, and the parents can see the balance owing, and they've got the details to pay online. And we also have a situation where we have a document called a request for payment, because our Ministry of Education has dictated that there are some items you can ask parents to contribute to, but you cannot force them to pay. And that's quite a robust topic of discussion in New Zealand at the moment, because education's meant to be free, but unfortunately the schools definitely need the contributions from parents. So you would have a situation, I imagine, in your private schools where there are fees you're certainly entitled to charge and the parents must pay them. In our state schools, we have a mixture. I can't think of anything more that I haven't covered there. Phil, are there any questions?
Sandy, can I ask you a question? We've got
Sure.
7 divisions in our group. So which each division needs to report separately, and we also need to have an integrated report of all 7 divisions.
Mm-hmm.
Is this scalable for that?
If you're reporting to your full school governance body, I would imagine that would be done through Xero, and Xero can produce reports for different divisions and cost centres. Our own add-on allows you to group the chart of accounts code in whichever way you want. So that's flexible enough for the school to customise, but we can also meet our Ministry of Education's mandatory reporting. In terms of the reporting of the student debts, which are basically a subsidiary ledger separate to Xero and the school management accounts, you can choose the items that you want to show on the statement. So as Phil's got on screen, the request for payment, if you had a particular division and you only wanted to show certain billable items, you can untick those. So there's a column there that says include in RFP, and you can adjust the ticks to show what you wanted to appear. That help answer that question?
Yeah. I have another question, which is what assistance or how does the system facilitate the collection of debt? So does it have the ability to send an SMS directly to a parent for outstanding fees, as an example?
It doesn't currently, but Musac are busy with their development of notifications at present, so Matt might be able to speak more about that. The parents have the portal, which they can access at any time. So that shows them exactly what's owing at any point in time. It's live. And most schools in New Zealand would email at present a statement or a request for payment to parents. So I can think of probably the majority of our schools would email monthly to parents. And they also can put notifications on the dashboard to indicate that fees have been applied and that they're due by a particular date. But it tends to be directed by the school depending on when they've done their billing and when they've reconciled. We certainly wouldn't want, you've got to keep this up to date if you're going to have parents looking at the portal. You can't have a situation where the staff in the finance office have not applied the payments made if you're going to expect parents to view this as live data.
I will just jump in here as well. In terms of debt collection or encouraging parents to pay the fees, so Sandy is describing the situation as it is currently, but the feedback, or rather the research that we have done into the development of the mobile app says that if we can give parents an easy way to pay at the time that they receive the bill itself, in other words, while it's front of mind, that substantially increases the recovery rate. And so with the development of the mobile app, so just to give you the background in that, we started the development of the mobile app 6 months ago. The first cut has been very much focused on teachers. Our philosophy is going forward that mobile will be the space that we operate in. So I loosely sort of call it the banking model. In New Zealand, 80% of what you do with your bank occurs on the phone and sorry, on your mobile handheld device, and with logging into website, sort of that 20%. So what we have in the pipeline in the next 6 months, and will be in development within the next month, is the ability for, once a fee gets put against a student, that will directly appear on the app, and with the integration with credit card and debit card providers, they will be able to easily pay. So that is the approach that we're taking at the moment. I would also see through the notification that if it's a case of re-requesting or reminding, that would be able to be done as well.
Good. Thanks, Matt.
That's right.
Are there any other questions there, Sophia?
No, thanks.
Okay. It's been expanded a lot and there's been a lot of user input into this.
Now, I think,
Thank you.
sorry, thank you, Sandy. I think we've given a fairly, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain we've given you a fairly good overview of Edge as a product. Now, of course, with Musac, we are more than just a product company, although that is obviously software is what we develop. And of course, we do have a library manager package which sits off to the side of this as well for library management. But being backed by, so we're a charitable organisation. We're not in this for profit, with the exception of being able to reinvest back into the education sectors. And that's both New Zealand, Pacific, and hopefully South Africa. We're backed by Massey University, so we bring with that a strong relationship with the Institute of Education, which means that we have academics that we work closely with in terms of developing both the product. As I mentioned, the product development is also in conjunction with user groups and user focus groups, so we're very user-led in terms of our development. The other piece, of course, is the support package that comes with it, and that comes with professional services. So our service team, and we would look at replicating that as a system within South Africa. It's certainly part of the philosophy that we have when we take product into schools, is a service package, both in terms of ensuring that the package meets the requirements of the school, as well as that the knowledge and training and development is delivered in such a way that
you just lost the voice there.
Was it sorry?
Can you hear us, David?
Did you lose me?
It's not because the meeting's timed out, is it, Matt?
It shouldn't.
No, carry on.
Okay. We're back.
No, you can hear me?
We can hear you now.
We lost you for about half a minute.
Oh dear. What was I up to?
Support package.
Support package. Yeah, so look, we have a services team. When we implement a solution into a school, it does come with, and I think Ian shared with you the slide pack in terms of the approach of implementation. We do have ongoing support as well, both through email channels, our knowledge base, which sits off to the side and gives that instant help, as well as ongoing training and support. So we're very much focused on delivering not only a piece of software, but a piece of software that works with you, as well as making sure that there's subject matter experts within your school that understands the package and can make sure that it's being leveraged. Certainly, it's an approach that we've refined over the last few years when we were come out of the point that we sort of were finding that customers were very unaware of what was in the package. It is a reasonably complex package and has quite a range of features. The other piece too, in terms of, so our place in the ecosystem of school is very much around student management systems, but we do have a number of partners that we work with in New Zealand to round out for more other, so the other areas within a school. So we can certainly, if there is a need wider than the student management, we can certainly bring in other organisations and fill out that need as well.
Okay. Would it be possible quickly to show us the life cycle of a student, how the parents can apply online to bring a student into the school, and then how we deal with alumni after they've left the school to keep contact with them?
Yep, so the online enrollment is not currently in place. It is one of the pieces that we have in our pipeline this year. So while we perhaps have maturity in New Zealand around some things, there are other things that are just coming together now, and on-roll alignments is one of those. At the moment, the enrollment piece is manual. In terms of alumni management, that's not a module that's part of our student management system. We would need to look at a provider for that. Certainly, we do have private schools that manage that within New Zealand.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm assuming that probably is actually a rather large component in terms of keeping in touch with alumni.
Yeah, it's knowing where they are, what they're doing, how you can. We need to be starting to look at them as a funding stream for the school. So being able to keep contact with them, knowing what they're doing, what stage they are in their lives, how we can tap into that as a resource, either as parents of students or from a funding perspective.
Yeah, that was something we had that in our previous package, a non-web package. That was something there, and I guess it's it's probably not so high up the flagpole in New Zealand as it perhaps is in South Africa. So it's something we'd love to have a discussion about. That would be something Matt would take great interest in, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear on that, it's not necessarily something we would develop ourselves, but certainly, so my role as Head of Innovation is to look at all of these types of opportunities and also customer needs and work out how we're best to deliver it.
Okay. We obviously would need to look at the Xero accounting package. Are there some marketing materials that we could look at for that? It isn't a package that is known here, so we'd need to do some research about that, because obviously it looks like they integrate in together.
Yes.
Most of the schools here are using a system called Pastel, which is what our auditors tend to suggest we use. So we just need to look at this other option to see how that would work for us.
Sure. On the 19th of this month, so that's Thursday this week, we've arranged a demonstration through Ian using Zoom again I was going to demonstrate just our Xero add-on, but I can also demonstrate Xero. Xero is globally supported. It's based in New Zealand, and there are 8 partners, Xero partners in South Africa. I think they're actually managed through the UK at present, but I believe that Rain, which is the company that Ian's involved with, are Xero partners already. So I'm very happy to go over that on the 19th at the time that we've already made. It's a similar time to this, but in 2 days' time. It's a very... Is that something you're going to be involved with, Sophia?
Yeah, if you're doing a separate accounting demonstration, then I would like to, or somebody with a finance background.
Sure.
Need to sit in on that if I'm not
Okay.
available. But,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, just looking at it from our perspective as the Kailami group of schools, we run our accounting package as a standalone package, completely so it doesn't integrate with the student management or the student database. And if we can achieve that, I mean, that would certainly be a situation that would cause up, it was free up a lot of free time, I would think.
Well, the situation in New Zealand is that 25 years ago, basically, we identified that the student database should be at the centre of all of the administration functions, including the finance and including the library and everything else. So Musac has worked with various versions of packages through to that, and it's only been in the last 2 years that we've had this wonderful integration with Edge and Xero, and that's making a huge difference to our company. I would say we've probably tripled our client base in the last 18 months, and it's solely been due to the integration and the power of Xero. And then we developed our add-on because we weren't happy with the reporting from Xero for schools. We've made it much simpler so that you don't have to be an accountant to manage it. And unfortunately in New Zealand, many of the administration staff, they've got so many aspects to their job that accounting is just one of them, and they've got to have a simple, fast way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And is Xero built specifically for schools, Sandy?
No, it's not. Xero was built for businesses, and it's a very clever package, but it didn't have school reporting and easy ways of budgeting that suited schools. So that's why our own company developed the Xero add-on. So the API from Xero is available to approved developers, and we invested in the add-on to achieve what schools needed, just to give a complete package. I'm very happy to show you on the 19th if you're free to join.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take a look
Yeah,
at that.
I'm sure Ian will send us the details of that meeting, the time, and
I'll send it to. I'll send the invitation to your email address, and you can invite whoever needs to be in on that meeting.
okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks there.
Sophia, thanks, David. Thanks for taking time. I know that traffic was hectic in your part of the world this morning.
Sorry about that.
Thanks
Well,
very
we're preparing for the onslaught tomorrow, actually.
Oh,
Yes, we're leaving.
your school starts tomorrow, so tomorrow's the terrible day. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Matt, Sandy, thanks very much, Phil. We'll get back to you later on. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Matt.
No problem. See you then.
Bye.